when trouble comes in my life, it's usually my own fault. Have you seen that in your own life? Usually when trouble's there, it's usually your own fault. Rarely am I the victim. I'm just the victim of self-inflicted wounds. That's what a wise man, Alan Clifton, would always say. You know, victim of self-inflicted wounds. And, you know, I just know it's my own fault. And for weeks now, we have been witness to Job and his sufferings. And he believed if suffering was experienced, it had to be deserved. And Job is very unique throughout the Bible, because God even says in the first chapter, and I believe it's verse 8 in the book of Job, "Consider my servant Job. There is none like him on earth. He is blameless and upright." There's none like him. And he, not only that, but he fears God and shuns evil. And throughout his sufferings, he asked one question, and that was why? Why, God? And it was until Job experienced the answer directly that it was revealed to Job that it was his understanding. It wasn't his character. It wasn't what he did that was deficient. It was his understanding that was deficient. As he admits, if you look in Job chapter 42 and verse 3, it says, "You said, 'Who is this darkening counsel without knowledge? I have indeed spoken about things I didn't understand, wonders beyond my comprehension.'" For indeed, God is sovereign. Now, these words I borrow from Dr. David Jeremiah. This is not my wisdom here. But God, he's sovereign. And he is free to act secretly out of his own will. It's true. And Job acknowledges that truth. Job certainly looks at it. If you look in the second verse, he goes, "I know you can do anything. No plan of yours can be opposed successfully." And one of the reasons why is because, well, God is holy. You can't oppose those plans because he's holy. And not only that, but he is good. He is good. His actions always have positive intent and a productive end. A productive end. Certainly, we can see this in the story of Job. If you jump to the end there, Job 42, verse 10, "Then the Lord changed Job's fortune when he prayed for his friends, and the Lord doubled all of Job's earlier possessions." Now, as a people, we have free will. And Job is a great example of that. You know, even when he was suffering, he would not curse God. He wouldn't do that. He could have, but he didn't. And we need to understand in our life that God will not allow evil to ultimately overcome. We need to understand that God has positive intent and a productive end, especially with what is his. And even before World War II, you know, if you go back during that time and you examine Adolf Hitler's hatred for the Jews, you can see it even before the actual conflict started. And it manifested ultimately into the final solution. And these are God's chosen people. He made a promise to preserve them. It's my belief that's why the nation of Israel today exists. And people are like, wow, but all the suffering, all the things we had to go through, well, a lot of it is because, here again, free will. For many of us, you know, during that time, it was about where are we going to stand? What are we going to do? Where are we going to be counted in this? And certainly there were many people who opposed that, many people that risked their lives to save the Jews during that time during World War II, and had to endure that because it had to leave an impression upon the world. And we're still feeling it today. Where are we going to stand when it comes to this? And ultimately it did lead to good. It has led to a good ending. I believe that, but we're still dealing with that today. And there are choices being made about where are we going to stand. We're going to stand with God's chosen people or not. And I also believe that, you know, it's why there was a great nation out there. It was the largest country that ever existed in history. And they were a nuclear power. They were the first to space. The first people to ever get something into space. And they formed a great alliance, and it's called the Iron Curtain. And that was a country that mocked God, and it banned the Bible. They were definitely the leaders of that nation. Their foundation, you know, was such that they were not God's people. Matter of fact, they wanted to eliminate God completely. So, I believe that's why God let them fall to their own foolishness and not let them persevere. And of course, I'm talking about the Soviet Union. The collapse of the USSR and its satellite Iron Curtain followers as well. And there were plenty of good folk that were working inside of it to keep the name of God going, to persevere under those conditions, to get the word of God out. And ultimately, they did win. Because now that part of the world freely can have Bibles and freely can worship the Lord. Because that's what we need to understand, that God has a positive intent and a productive end in all of our lives, especially with those who are His. And we may not understand it while we're going through it, and I certainly didn't. I remember when I walked right out of college, there was a job next to my hometown. Matter of fact, it was the town just north of it. And they were a big-time band program that competed at the Indiana State Fair. And there were two of us that were finalists for that job. And I was the local boy, and I knew the town and something of the program, and I had done the State Fair. Competitive marching band was part of me. Some people would say it's part of your DNA, you know, and it was intense. I didn't get the job. The other guy who didn't have any experience, who wasn't from that area, that, you know, competitive marching band was not part of his DNA, got the position instead. At the time, I did not understand about it at all. I was not pleased. Later on in life, I did understand that it was the best thing that ever happened to me at that time. Certainly. Because God was, you know, He had a positive intent. And He definitely did have a productive end when that came about. And I'm thankful for it. And as I got older, I could understand better. And I was learning that, yes, God's intent, indeed, His plans, His understanding is beyond me, and His ways are best. And so, as the years gone by, I've understood more and more, you know, that, yep, okay, Lord, wherever you lead, I'll follow. And I see, I understand. And it's sort of like why the story of Bartimaeus is so important in our lives. Because if we go to Mark 10, verse 46, it says there, Jesus and His followers came into Jericho. As Jesus was leaving Jericho together with His disciples and a sizable crowd, a blind beggar named Bartimaeus, Timaeus' son, was sitting beside the road. And when he heard that Jesus of Nazareth was there, he began to shout, "Jesus, Son of David, show me mercy." I can just hear it now. He's sitting there, you know. "Pass me not, O gentle Savior, hear my humble cry, while on others thou art calling, do not pass me by." Yeah. Sorry if I stumbled at the end. I get very emotional with that piece of music because you can just hear the anguish in the cry when you hear those lyrics, and you can, you know, I could just see Bartimaeus being the same way, you know, calling out to Jesus, because here he is. He's come to town. Now is the time. Now is the time not to be timid and call out. And that's the same for all of us. Don't be timid. Here's the opportunity. And it is in all things that we need to bring forth to God. Because, you know, I find myself doing that more and more all the time. You know, when I started, I changed my workout routine. I had to, you know, and I started to go swimming. And I know what my swimming prowess is. And such, and believe me, before I get in that pool, I pray every day, "Lord, please, you know, be with me as I'm swimming here today." And when I finish, I am thankful for it. You know, I did that the other day. Janine will tell you, I just went out this week and I took the general knowledge test for my CDL license. I decided that, you know, I'm getting this more and more, Brian, you need to pick this up. You need to pick this up. There's a shortage of bus drivers. I think I might be in a position to help out in certain situations. So I went to the license branch and decided to take the CDL test. And guess what? Even though I got a perfect score on the National Driving Exam when I took it, I didn't pass the CDL the first time I took the test. And it's hilarious. Days passed, that would have really bothered me. Didn't bother me this time. You know, because I know there's an intent and I know there's a purpose. And I went back yesterday and I took it and passed. You know. And I still have 3 more tests to do before I could pull up this license. And you know, even during the test, I was sitting there saying, "Thank you, Lord, thank you for that one." And you know, and it kept me calm. I could feel His presence and leading while I was taking that examination, because there are times you can just get overwhelmed by the situation. Just like in the story, don't let in the hymn that we sang, "Don't let the flood waters overwhelm me." Certainly. Don't let them overwhelm me. So in all things and all opportunities, certainly call out. And why? Because right here it says why. In Mark 10:49, Jesus stopped and said, "Call him forward." Call him forward. So throwing his coat to the side, he jumped up and came to Jesus. He rushed to Jesus, jumped up, threw his stuff aside, and came to Jesus. He's blind, for crying out loud, right? But that's his reaction. That's his reaction. He can't see. And he doesn't know what is going to happen. But he does see well enough. He does see well enough to know not to hesitate. Not to hesitate. Because I'm going to tell you, there's a reason why not to hesitate. There's a reason why you should always rush to Jesus, even if you can't see, even if you don't understand, and that is in Hebrews 7:24. In contrast, he, which is Jesus, holds the office of priest permanently because he continues to serve forever. You know, he's on call 24/7. He's there for you. In Hebrews 7:27, he doesn't need to offer sacrifices every day like the other high priests for first their own sins and then for the sins of the people. Because he's not busy taking care of his sins because there aren't any. He's there for you at all times. Continuing on, he did this once and for all when he offered himself. For all, in other words, for all time. For that is how great the love of Jesus is. He walked this earth seeing the need and endured the unimaginable just for you. And he's there for you at all times. Even if you don't understand. Even if you can't see. And check it out in verse 25. This is why he can completely save those who are approaching God through him. Because he always lives to speak with God for them. Certainly that seems to be aligned with the message, right? That God has positive intent and a productive end in all things, especially for what is his. Especially for what is his. So may you trust like Job and rush forward like Bartimaeus, even when you can't understand or see. Amen.